What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Let's Build the U.S.S. Voyager Season 1, Episode 45. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, help me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we've got about a 19-minute episode, and today we're going to be working on the lower hull deflector dish. So without further ado, let's go ahead, kick back, relax, and we're just going to jump right into this thing. Pretty much this whole episode is just going to be the deflector dish. So we're just going to start building this thing out. Now what I will say is that by the time that we're done with building the deflector dish in today's episode, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that I only ever do one pass on the deflector dish. So what we're going to do today is basically what we're going to do. I want to start off with our placement line here. You can see I'm doing a line straight across. This is the widest point on the lower hull. Come all the way at an angle here when it gets to this widest point. Before it starts cutting back down, we're going to do a row of blue concrete going straight across. Now I'm not going to lie, I'm actually pretty happy with how the deflector dish came out, but there are two things that I kind of want to do to it if I end up doing it, or not if I end up, but when I do Season 2 of Voyager. I almost want to make the deflector dish just a hair small, and I think I want to have it backed into the hull just a little bit, because right now the way it's going to look is that when we're done with what we're doing here, it'll be flush with it, but I want to bring it back maybe by 1 or 2 blocks inside the hull, if that makes sense. Because it's kind of feeling just a little bit flat, I guess, if that makes sense. But I don't know. I'm still kind of thinking about it, but I do feel that even in the at the very least, I'm going to have to just ever so slightly adjust the overall size of it, because I feel like it's just a little bit too big. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with how the deflector dish ultimately ends up coming out. And all I'm doing here is I'm literally just looking at my reference material and I'm working out the shape of the deflector dish. So we're building it out. And the best way I can describe the deflector dish on Voyager, it almost, it's not an oval, but the bottom side of the deflector dish, it's almost like an odd-shaped football. The bottom side of the deflector dish matches the shape of a football, but the top side of it is definitely it's not as tall. So it's a similar, it's almost the same angle, but it's not as thick, if that makes sense. This is why I say it just goes right back into, again, identifying the shape that you're working with instead of what you're specifically building, because when you identify that shape, it's going to make it a little bit easier to build out whatever it is you're trying to build out. And that's the best way I can describe what this looks like. It looks like an oddly shaped football, more or less. That the bottom side, like if you basically imagine if you're looking at a football from the side and you cut it in half down the middle, the bottom side of the football is almost unchanged in its shape. Maybe it's a little bit fatter, but the top side is so much thinner than the bottom side. That's basically what we've done here. Is that you take a football and you shrink the top side of it, but the bottom side, maybe it just becomes a little bit fatter on the ends of it instead of curving. And that's the shape of the deflector dish. And then at that point, once we've identified our shape, it literally just comes down to wireframing it out. This is why you'll see me going back maybe a couple of times and changing the overall shape, because what I'm starting to do may not be working as much. We got to make some changes to it. This is why it goes right back to sometimes you just got to throw something down, see how it looks, because now we have something to work with. We can gauge it and compare it to the reference material to see what changes we need to make it look a little bit better. Because, you know, like, nobody's perfect. Again, like, I'm not perfect. I can't do something like this, like, perfect the first time, every single time. I mean, I'm not going to sell myself short. There might be some times here and there where I get lucky and I happen to do something perfectly the first time around, and then it's like, oh, hey, I just happened to get lucky on that one. But, you know, sometimes it just one of those things. It just takes more effort with some things than others to get it to come out exactly the way that you want it to. But I promise you, add this process to your build, because when you start to identify shapes and breaking down those basic shapes, man, it's going to open up a world for you. It really is. It's going to make everything seem that much easier. Because I think that what helps me is that this is something that I've brought over from being an artist, that when I was working, when I would do sketch art and things like that, or paintings, it's all about breaking down whatever it is, whether it's a building or a person, animal, whatever. When you just start breaking down those core shapes, it starts to become a little bit easier to flesh it out. And it's the same mindset with building. It's the exact same mindset. So now you can get a better visual of what I'm talking about here. So we have our football that's cut in half. The bottom on the ends is just a little bit fatter, but that's a football. It's just the top side is really, really thin. It's not looking too bad. We've got to take two things into account right now. Or we have to start thinking about two things anyway. One is the top side of the deflector. Is it too thin? Do we have to thicken it up? But we also have to take into account the two torpedo bays that we're going to have to build. Because the two torpedo bays sit directly above the deflector dish. So that's something we really have to take into account. So I think what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to stick with what I got. So I'm going to transition the outline that we have, and I'm going to go into the hull with it. So we're literally just going to be building it directly behind what we have. So we're literally going to be building it into the white concrete. Very, very simple what we're doing now. It's literally just a matter of deleting what's behind it. We're going to get rid of the access, which was our starting blue out builder line. We don't need it anymore. It's going to get a little bit dark here because I just got rid of our light source. But I'll just add a block there just to brighten it up. Yeah, I don't know, like, I kind of feel like, and I'm curious, I haven't had any, I think I mentioned this when I did the tour episode, and I haven't had anybody say anything, so I'm almost wondering if maybe I'm being a little bit hard on the deflector dish area, because I still, like, kind of feel like it's just a little bit thick on this. I need to, like, shrink it just a little bit on the sides. But I haven't had anybody say anything, so I don't know. I'm still going to sit on it and think about what I want to do. We've got some time before Voyager Season 2 is going to come out. So it's just something I'm going to be thinking about. But if you have any thoughts on that, I definitely would love to hear from everybody. Because you guys know how I am. I'm not one of those where I think what I do is the be-all, end-all. I'm very open to suggestions. But I don't know. What we have here, we don't necessarily have to change it. It just goes back to, okay, if we make it thinner, is it going to look better? I don't know if that's going to be the case. It might be just one of those things where maybe we just kind of got to call it a day. It looks good enough that we can move on from it. That was honestly where I was at after I initially built it. Like, I wasn't 100% set on the thickness of the overall sides of it. Um, I wanted to make it just a little bit smaller, but then more I thought about it, I was like, well, like, it doesn't look bad. It's just kind of tweaking my eye a little bit because it's not perfect. But that's just going to be one of those things. Sometimes it's not going to be perfect. And I don't know if the change would make it look any better. And see, that's not looking too bad. It's not looking too bad at all. I'll say this, for a first attempt at Voyager, I'm over the moon happy with how this thing has turned out. I really am. Because this has not been an easy build, you know. I've actually been very, very proud of myself in that regard, because even like the Enterprise D, like, I talked about it, like, that was my number one build request for the longest time, like going back to when I first started my YouTube channel. Like, I saw the comments on there where people were like, you need to build the Enterprise D, and I didn't want to do it at the time because I was like, man, I don't know if I'm ready to build the Enterprise D. That's going to be a hard build. And even when I did do the Enterprise D, I was very surprised with how well it turned out. There were some things that I wanted to fix on it, which we've already done with the rebuild, and there's still some other things that I need to do. But I was pleasantly surprised with how good it came out, which is pretty much what I'm trying to get across here. And same thing with Voyager. I think the biggest thing that I wish I would have taken a little bit more time with before I filled it in was the lower hull. I felt bad when we basically had to rebuild the whole front end of it because it was just so fat, but I just wasn't looking right, you know, and it would have bothered me until I fixed it. So I just made the decision, like, let's just do it. And that's just going to be one of my rules now. It's like, I'm sorry I have to make this change, and if you want to go on this ride with me, make it. If you don't, just leave it the way it is. It's not going to hurt anything. It just means your build will just be slightly different than mine. But then, you know, that's okay though. So right now we're building out the middle portion of the deflector dish, and we're literally just doing it the same way that we did our outline, the same way we've done this entire build. We're going to wireframe it out, just bit by bit, and that's looking pretty good, I think. That's looking pretty good. The one thing that I will say that will be hard with the deflector dish is that even after we do the blue and the brown in the middle, the deflector dish does have more detailing on it, on the actual ship, and it's going to be difficult to build all that out with the angle that the front end of the lower hull is going at. That's what I was thinking, like, the only thing I might be able to do is just bring it back into the ship 1 or 2 blocks just to give it some depth instead of it just being flush. It might look a little bit better. I don't know. So now we're making a slight modification here. We're going off the last line that we go 2 down, and I'm going to be deleting that. And basically what we're going to do here is we are going to copy our bottom row, but we're just making a slight tweak to where that starts out as, if that makes sense. So we're just literally off that very bottom row, off the sides where it went 2 down, we're just going to go off 1, and then we're going to start off of our bottom pattern that is already there. We're just moving it over at this point. And you can see I'm going through as I go row to row. The row that I'm mirroring after I build it, I delete that mirrored row just to keep myself on point. It's not necessarily super crucial, But I'm just doing it in this way so that for some of you that maybe those extra blocks can be confusing, it's just vital. Delete after you've made that change, delete the other one. This way you don't have to worry about it and it's not going to confuse you at a later time. So we see we got 4. We're going to add that in, and then we're going to delete the mirrored row. The same thing on this side. We're going to do 4. Now we're doing a row of 5. Alright, let's get rid of the access. We're looking pretty good. Just a very, very slight tweak. Now we just got to do the very bottom, and we've reshaped the bottom. Just makes it a little bit tighter. I think that looks a little bit better. That's not looking too bad, all things considered. It looks like the deflector dish from Voyager. So now, as you can see, I already skipped ahead, but basically what we're going to do at this point, and I'm not going to do all this on camera, there's no point of it. But all this in between here, all this white concrete, we're going to be swapping this out for the blue concrete. Which is really important that you don't add outside of this outline, and that you don't get rid of any of the brown in the middle here. So you want to make a point to pause the episode, make that change, and then let's go ahead and pick up, and then we'll wrap up the last 4 minutes of today's episode. Alright, so I've skipped ahead now to where I've already made this change, and I don't know if this is going to be a permanent light source. I really don't. I'm just adding this in just so we can see our deflector dish is a little bit better. We're just going to be doing candles going along the cut line here. Yes, that's definitely brightening it up quite a bit. Because it's hard going with this cut, the way that the front end of the lower hull is shaped. We can't really use the illuminated blocks, any of them, because it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. And I really don't like using the candles unless I absolutely have to, but the deflector dish seems to be one of those areas where it's 9 times out of 10 we end up having to use candles. Now the only thing that would make this maybe look a little bit better would be taking like a darker color like black concrete or the gray concrete, and then just doing an outline around this. Because what that's going to do is it's going to make the shape so much stronger. This is why I say sometimes pinstriping, it's your friend. Especially on Minecraft, it helps to bring out the colors even more. And it's a matter of knowing what colors to use to make it pop. Because that's what we're doing right now. Because at the moment, what we have, it doesn't look bad, but it's not popping out. It's just kind of, it's not really blended in with the white. So to fix that, we're going to do that row of the light gray concrete going all the way around the deflector dish. So this way when we come back, watch, what's going to end up happening is that the deflector dish is going to look so much more prominent than it did before just by adding this outline. Yeah, see, just that change alone, it's really making a difference. Alright, we've got a couple more rows to fill in, and I think that's going to be it for today. So like I said, like we're really getting to the point where you're not going to see a lot of drastic changes at this point. The only, well, we've got 2 more changes that we have to make on the build, where we're just going to be shaving off a couple of rows of the outline for the sides of the lower hull, but it won't be as nearly as extensive as what we had to do before. I promise you, it's just going to be taking off some of the thickest rows, and then we have to rework the top section of the saucer, but it's not going to be too bad. But I promise you, if you loved how Voyager looked in the tour episode, these changes are necessary. It's going to help bring us to that point. But man, yeah, see, look at that with the outline now. That looks so much better, and like, you don't have to use the gray. If you think black looks better, use black. I don't know. I just kind of think that outside of using like black for like a corner outline, and what I mean by that is like the total outline of the front end of the lower hull. We can make that black. That kind of makes sense. But having this black here too, I think it might be too much, and it'll darken up the ship. And it's identifying colors that we can use. Voyager has a lot of grays, so we can get away with that. But definitely loving how that's looking. But I think that's going to do it for us today. I just want to thank you again for tuning in today's episode, and if you did enjoy this content, if you can help me out and hit that like and subscribe button, drop a comment below. I can't thank you guys enough for that. That really helps my analytics on the channel. It helps get me more exposure, and yeah. But if you do have any questions, I definitely love hearing from everybody. You can drop a comment below. You can also join the Discord as well. Any builds you want to see, any questions you might have. But I think that's going to do it. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, if you could just help me out, hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And yeah, I just want to thank you all again. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section. Post your photos in Discord.